Hi, this is Siofra Bradigan, and this is Siofra's Magic Alcove. So I'm going to start this video off telling you about Whale Woman. She was a woman whose English name was Jill Fairchild that I met at the first of the Native American medicine wheel ceremonies that I attended in British Columbia, Okanagan Valley area. And her name is Jill Fairchild. And she looks just like her name. I mean, she's very fair, fair looking young woman at the time, of course. And meeting her was very fascinating because here was what she told us about her life. When she was 9 years old, she was on an air mattress floating on the ocean on somewhere in the east coast, I'm assuming, of the United States. And while she was floating not too far from shore, 9 pilot whales came and they surfaced around her and surrounded her little air mattress raft thing, and then they took her out to sea. And there were a lot of people who witnessed this event taking place, and she was like kind of surprised but not afraid. Her parents and all the other people, however, were not calm about it. The Coast Guard was out looking for her and everything else to rescue her. They were definitely freaking out. And she says that the whales took her about a mile and a half out, she thinks, and had her there for at least an hour, maybe a little longer. And when they were done talking to her, they brought her back. And she was safe. The thing that was so fascinating was that she could understand the whales through the pictures they put in her head. So they were communicating information to her and telling her what her role was, what they wanted her to do. They wanted to communicate, at least on some level, with people and let them know a little bit about themselves. And after that happened, she started working near in the ocean. She started working with whales and dolphins, some in captivity. She met Lily when he was trying to figure out dolphin language and, all this other stuff, which was interesting. But what the whales told her was that first, once they had walked on land, and then they had decided to go back to the water. And this is before they found the first whale that they determined was part of the whale species but had legs. It predated that actual discovery, archaeologically speaking, or whatever the science is for that. Um, and that, they'd been watching for quite a while, watching us, and that the song that they sing that changes every year is like their oral history, is their record of changes that they see in the coastline and with people and everything else, and that they're not like particularly interested in having a one-on-one with us on a regular basis, at least not at that point. But they were making sort of a step in that direction. Um, and when she told some native people about her experience, they were kind of flabbergasted because this kind of a story is something straight out of their collective histories. A lot of times they have someone who's born like this who has a special connection with an animal or with an energy or what have you. And so, but the fact that this woman, was alive and not an old story was sort of a confrontation with the idea of myth being allegorical only or myth being historically accurate representation of something that actually happened. So it kind of created this very interesting conflict, I guess, dichotomy in trying to understand her and so forth. And her experiences in the ocean, she had slides. She showed us all these slides, and it was one of the things that she thought was interesting was that the whales would not let her in the water with a camera. Uh, Whenever she tried getting in the water with a camera, they would take the camera away. But she had a spouse, and they permitted him to be in the water with a camera, which is how they got the slides. And they trusted her enough that they showed her their babies. You know, she was introduced to them, all different species of whales, and porpoises and dolphins as well. She had one story she told us when she was, I think, off the coast of Hawaii, and she was swimming with some dolphins, and they were trying to teach her how to swim like a dolphin, and she wasn't learning fast enough. She said their personalities are just really quick, you know, like they want you to get it, they want it now. It's like they're very fast thinking, fast moving kind of thing. And they wanted her to stop using her arms. And so to get the message across, one of them came up and actually put his teeth on her outstretched arm and raked across her her scuba suit, and she could feel the teeth, and she knows how sharp their teeth are, and she thought she was going to look down and see like blood spewing out of her, but they had such control over the pressure that they used, they didn't hurt her at all. They were just trying to make a point, you know, stop using the pesky arms and put them at your side. And she says, okay, I shall do that now. And so she complied with their instructions, let's say. And the fact that she could communicate with them and they with her with such accuracy and simplicity was her energy was great. It was wonderful to meet her. This was the first year, and the natives that were putting on the weekend were still trying to get, you know, figure out how to deal with us non-native people, and we're still not quite together when it came to that. And a weird thing happened in the middle of her lecture. This one native, drunk off his butt, I mean, he could hardly put two words together, decided to get up, interrupt her talk and presentation, and give us a lecture about how we weren't behaving properly, which I thought was sort of an ironic kind of thing. Um, so, so that was sort of interesting. And then when and everybody just let him, even though there was a clear no drugs, no alcohol rule, I thought it was interesting that he was somehow exempt from that, or the politeness factor, not wanting to confront or something, let it happen. I don't know. It's all very interesting. And then she continued on with her presentation and her story about it. And the thing I loved about meeting her was that being a living evidence or proof or example of what it means to be so open to having unusual experiences and embracing the path that the world, in this case, set out for her. I mean, she was 9 years old when this started. It's pretty amazing. And no one ever saw a pilot whale in that harbor ever again after they came and took her away for a while and had a long chat with her. And of course, whales are amazing creatures, and it's their language is pretty incredible, and the humpback whales actually create a new song every year. Apparently, it's the male humpbacks on the west coast of Australia that start the new song every year, and then it spreads from there to the east coast and then across the Pacific Ocean. And according to Whale Woman, what the whales said about that song was that it was their oral history, that that's how they keep track of changes in the coastline and what's happening with humans and that kind of thing. So it was sometime after I met her, because this was probably, when would this be? Um, I was already gone by 85, so this was in the early 80s, maybe even the late 70s was the first one I went to. And yeah, we were still doing, there was still a lot of whalers out there and so forth. And we were just beginning the process of seeing whales and dolphins and so forth as sentient beings with a consciousness and self-awareness and culture of their own, which is now, gotten more and more obvious as people have studied them out in the wild and seen and listened to their interactions and so forth. But I remember after I think I moved to Santa Cruz, which was in 85, and people started encountering whales in the wild in a different setting. Like we had started to stop the whole scale slaughter of their species, and they were now more interested in interacting with people. I remember one video I saw of a woman in Baja California, I think, and there was a whale that was right next to the small boat she was in. And she reached out and she touched the whale, and the whole whale just shivered from the contact. So, how sensitive their skin is to be able to have that kind of response to a human touch was pretty amazing. And I've had some incredible images, dreams, and stuff like that with whales from time to time. So, I guess the reason for the story is one, to encourage us to embrace our differentness and that kind of thing, and to allow things to happen that we may not completely understand at the time, and be willing participants in this exchange of knowledge, information, whether it's with an animal or with a spirit being. Um, there's some potential there that is difficult to quantify. So that's our first story. I have been invited to become an affiliate for my very first company. I've had several of them approach me so far, but none of them seem to be a good fit. And this is a CBD company that makes good products and a lot of different kinds of products. And they've offered us a 25% off coupon code for all of you guys. So if you decide you want to buy some, you get 25% off your listed price. And they ship all around the world. So the coupon code is my name, Siofra, Siofra, and you'll have an opportunity to, check out some of their products. So I'm going to do one at a time. I have 3 products, and I'll spread them out throughout the video that we do so you don't get overwhelmed with information. So the name of the company is Premium Jane, and they actually source their organic hemp products from Kentucky, according to their website. And this I have used. You can see it's empty. And this is their Premium CBD Bath Bomb, almond and coconut. It has 100 milligrams of CBD in it, and Epsom salts, and some MSM as well, in order to get it really looking like dissolving into the water and getting into your skin and so forth, to give you the most amount of relaxation that you can get. So you put the whole thing in there in warm water and let it fully dissolve, which I did. And I have to say that if you are someone who has difficulty getting in and out of the bathtub, you'll want to make sure that you have a bath mat inside your tub, because this stuff is very slippery. It definitely makes the water very soft and slippery. And so I have a bath mat because I'm at an age where I have to be careful getting in and out of a tub, although I like baths better than showers. And I don't think you could use this kind of a thing in a shower anyway. But just be aware of that, because it made my skin nice and slippery for probably about a day or so after I took the bath. I'm not sure how smart it was to do my hair in the bath water with this in it. It just, it's probably better to use it just for relaxation instead of for the usual kinds of things that you would do in a bath. Also, although the product says it's made out of just organic material, I can tell you that this smells very strongly of coconut. It says that it has a CBD isolate, Opti MSM, Epsom's pink Himalayan and deep and dead sea salt, grapeseed oil, organic shea butter, sodium bicarbonate, known as baking soda, citric acid, almond oil, and coconut oil. The smell of coconut is very strong. It did not, however, make me sneeze, which was a surprise because I'm fairly sensitive to scents. So, that would be product number 1. And Ian is going to put up the information at the bottom of the screen. We will also put in the information in the comments in the video when we put up the video. So you'll be able to see it in 2 different locations. And again, it's premiumjane.com, and the coupon code for the 25% off their products is Siofra, Siofra. So I'm pretty excited. This is the first time I found something that I thought would be worthwhile trying out and then sharing with you guys. Okay, so I'm going to share a story of the Morrigan from Ancient Mirrors of Womanhood by Merlin Stone. And it's just the way mythologies are written and the things that happen in them are fascinating to me. And hopefully you will enjoy the story as much as I did. There's a lot of stuff about the Morrigan before this, but I want to talk about the one thing that happened between her and the warrior of Ulster, Cuchulainn, if I'm saying that correctly, was the one who angered her the most. Trying to get this so that I can see this and read it properly. Yep, I look pretty weird that way. Okay, I'll do it this way. Okay, that works. All right. Some say that her feud with him first began on the day that she watched him bathing by a riverbank, and upon seeing his bared body, desired to lay him down beside her. It was then that she approached him in her finest robes, embroidered with all the colors of the rainbow. Though all the other soldiers could hardly look upon her, so filled were they with awe and admiration, Cuchulainn refused her suggestion that he lie with her in love, claiming that he was too weary from the day's battle. Still, it was not this refusal that angered the mighty Morrigan, who showed much patience and concern for the man that she desired, for she then suggested that she would help him in the battle, and with the energy that he would save by her conquest in the fighting, he would be able to accept her offer of a loving bed. But this second offer was responded to with great disdain at the very idea of a woman helping in the battle, and it was this reply that aroused the wrath of the Morrigan, thus making Cuchulainn an enemy of the powerful daughter of eternity. So it came about that on a morning when Cuchulain still lay fast asleep, he was awakened by a noise so loud and startling that it caused him to tumble from his bed onto the floor, and then to rush half asleep through the door without a stitch of clothing. Jumping into his battle wagon, naked and unarmed, the mist of sleep began to clear, and Cuchulain soon realized that although his intent was to ride to a battle, he did not know in which direction he had meant to go. Sitting there in naked puzzlement, he saw another wagon approach, that one drawn by a single bright red horse that walked upon 3 legs, and pulled the vehicle behind it by a pole that ran directly through its body, the tip of the wagon pole emerging from between the horse's eyes. Alongside the horse walked a footman, a forked wand of hazel in his hand, and upon the high seat of the wagon sat a woman whose hair and thick brows were the color and brilliance of flame. Her long cloak of blood color spread out about her, as if she sat upon a throne. Ever more puzzled and confused, Cuchulain asked their names and purpose, but he found that the riddles that he received as answers were far beyond his ken. As he added questions to his questions, the riddles grew in sarcasm, so that his confusion soon became frustration. Just as he realized what a fool he must seem, sitting naked and unarmed in his own wagon, puzzled by words of his own language, holding the reins but ignorant of his intended destination, all disappeared except the woman, who suddenly became a great black bird, cawing in laughter at his plight as her wings slid off into the morning air. But Morrigan was not satisfied to have shown the man a fool. When next the warrior Cuchulain fought upon a battlefield, she gathered 50 white heifers, and linking them together with a perfect silver chain, she took the form of a heifer without horns, thus leading the herd across the fields and waters, until the confusion they had caused among the troops of Cuchulain gave the advantage to his enemy. The Morrigan then made herself into a long black eel and twisted about the arms and legs of Cuchulain, so that he was unable to move in the waters. But just as he was almost able to pull the eel from his body, she became a sharp-toothed wolf, cutting deep and painful gashes on his arms. In this way they battled until the dark of evening began to cover all. Then she left him on the battlefield, knowing that he would make his way towards home to heal his cut and broken body. The Morrigan, too, had been badly hurt, especially about the face and eyes. Realizing that she could best be healed by the one who had caused the wounds, if she could win 3 blessings from him, she soon devised a plan. So it was that at the next noon she became an old woman with a milking pail, sitting with a cow by the side of the road, the path that Cuchulain would have to take upon his journey to his home. When he came along the road, as she knew that he must do, his body as dry and tired as she suspected, she called out the offer of a cup of milk, suggesting that it might be pleasant to feel the wetness upon his throat. Not knowing who the woman was, he came gratefully to her side and drank the creamy liquid from the cup, blessing her for her kindness, as he took the empty cup from his mouth. When she poured a second time, again he drank and blessed the woman, and yet a third time did he do the same, until thrice blessed, the Morrigan was healed. Cuchulain was startled as the Morrigan then spread her raven wings, and more so when the old woman disappeared, and the large raven that took her place perched itself upon a nearby bramble. It was then that he heard the shrill cawing prophecies of a future grim and short in time, and watched as the wide black wings of the Morrigan disappeared into the distance, as he stood earthbound and fearful of her wrath and magical powers. Siofra here again with the second product that I wanted to share from the Premium Jane Company. And this is their CBD oil. I don't know if you can see this or not. Get it up there. Yeah, it doesn't show up very well in the camera. Yeah, there's sort of it right there. Anyway, it is, I like the packaging. that this stuff comes in. I've read online that there were some people that were unhappy with the shipping and packaging and so forth, but I didn't find any difficulty with that part at all. And this is a dropper bottle, and so there's 200 milligrams in the bottle. So I think depending on how much of a dropper you do, 300 milligrams, you're going to get varying amounts. So you can take once or twice a day, and you put like about 3/4 of a dropper under your tongue in your mouth for 60 to 90 seconds to let it sort of absorb through your mucous membranes, and then you can swallow it. And I was a little bit concerned about this because, it's like I don't like oil at all. And it's a nice light flavor. It's a mint flavor. And it's a mild mint. And it doesn't have an oily aftertaste to it at all. And I usually do about a half a dropper or so. And, it's well packaged. Same source material, the hemp from Kentucky. And there is your thing there where you can decide how much of it you want to use. It hasn't made me drowsy in any way whatsoever. It's just sort of a smoothing sensation, energetically speaking. And, I haven't been using it long enough to know if I've got long-term effects like pain reduction and that kind of thing. But that's part of what CBD products are for, is to help with pain reduction. And so that is undoubtedly one of, with long-term use, one of the things that you might be able to get out of it. Me with all my muscle spasms and everything else. So anything that'll relax my body and my energy is something that I'm definitely interested in trying. But I liked the product. I didn't have any issues with it in any level whatsoever. It's not a strong smell. It's not a strong flavor. It's not oily and sticky. It's, pleasant. It's easy to hold in my mouth for 60 to 90 seconds, so I don't feel like I'm having to force it or anything like that. And so I'm pretty happy with it. And again, the company is Premium Jane, and the coupon code for 25% off their products is my name, Siofra, Siofra. And they ship all the way around the world. So they're a worldwide shipping company kind of thing. So no matter where you are, you can order from them. I don't think they have any exceptions at this point. So that's the second product. Okay, so here is another story of a different Celtic goddess. In this case, Macha. This is one I remembered reading a while back when I was first starting out, and I was quite tickled by all of these stories, actually. I think that was when I got the book, was probably in 86, I think, somewhere around there, when they became a part of my inner reality. So Macha took the form of a poor young peasant woman, and after wandering through the forest, she entered the small wooden house of Crunchu, a widower yet not much past the lad. Making her way about the cabin, she soon fitted it to her liking. When she was satisfied with what she had done, she beckoned to the fellow, who was more than pleased to find such a woman in his home. For moments that seemed as eons, for eons that passed as moments, so pleased was Macha with her life, that she made the life of Crunchu one of joy and abundance, until his only wish was that children might enter into such bliss. In this way it happened that Macha, the mighty Macha, grew great with life. It was not without a bit of surprise that Crunchu glimpsed this mother-to-be darting about between the trees so swiftly that her feet seemed never to touch the ground. So that when a time soon came that Crunchu happened to be in Ulster and chanced upon the men of the Ulster court, he told them of this wonder, of a pregnant woman who could run faster than the king's horses. Of course they laughed, and insinuations that the man was dafty, but Crunchew continued to insist until the men of Ulster grew so angry that they cried blasphemy that anyone should dare to so insult the name of the king by saying that his wife, full with child, could run faster than the steeds of the royal stable. Blasphemy, they cried, and swore to take his head, and then relented just enough to let him try to prove the truth of such absurd claims. So it was that upon his return to the mother of the yet forming child he had desired, Crunchew told her of his day at Ulster and insisted that she must save his head by proving that his claim was veritable truth. He looked upon the swelling roundness in which the child lay, never suspecting that the woman was other than mortal. Yet so worried was he for his own head that even when she begged for time, at least until after the birth, saying that to run now might endanger the babe, perchance kill the mother, he ruled that they must go. Perhaps the men of Ulster, seeing her so filled with new life, might see fit to postpone the challenged race, but go they must, for his head was in peril. Almost in disbelief of Crunchew's willingness to chance her life for his, Macha arrived at the court of Ulster to be greeted with jeering cries of blasphemy, doubt, and challenge. Nowhere in the hearts of the crowd that had formed was there anything that might keep them from watching such a race. Already the king's steeds pranced about, nipping at their reins, anxiously waiting for the moment that they would be set loose. The noise of the gathered crowd was thunderous. How dare a man claim that his wife could best the finest horses of Concobar, the king of Ulster? Right up to the starting line, she tested their hearts as they thought to test her legs. Not a stop was to be heard among the thousands, though they swarmed by the place where the great horses waited, watching, as she stood for a moment to pull the pins from her braided bun, watching as hair colored with the glow of burning embers blew behind her as a mane in the wind. Then she sprang off so lightning quick that it seemed that she flew over the horses and pulled ahead with such a speed that the royal steeds were hardly to the halfway mark when she calmly made her way across the finish line. But this is not the ending of this story, for the mighty Macha, as quickly and easily as she had run, then brought forth the set of twins that had grown in her womb, and took one up under each powerful arm. No one made a move. The air was dense with quiet, as thrice victorious Macha, her newborn babes held close to her sides, stood before the new frightened men of Ulster. With a resounding echo of prophetic words that will never be forgotten, her voice rang out into the silence. Thus she cursed them for their pride and for the cold blood in their hearts, and warned them that misery and suffering as painful as the labor of childbirth was to be her punishment of Ulster for 9 times 9 generations. And with these words Macha took her twins and left the land of Ulster. So this is from the same book, Ancient Mirrors of Womanhood by Merlin Stone. And this is a poem to what I would call Nuit, is sometimes pronounced other ways. It's spelled in her book Neit, but Nuit is the name that I know her by. Most ancient mother, great radiant one, lady of the stars, mistress of the celestial ocean, highest judge, fiery one who rose from the primordial floods, it is Nuit who reaches down from the heavens to take the hand of each who dies, taking them into her arms, to place them as stars of the universe, each to light her perfect body with an emerald light, sowing mortals upon her heavenly self, as others sow the green plants of the fields. Some say that she is Nuit, the primeval waters that once covered all earth. Some say that she is Tefnit, giver of the moisture and sunlight. Some say that she is the lady of the loom and shuttle, and lady of the arrow and the bow, the lady whose image stood at the most ancient shrine of Sais upon the Delta lands, the most sacred image marked. I am all that has ever been. I am all that is. I am all that shall ever be. Yet never have mortal eyes perceived me as I am. Ascending from the primeval waters, her body became the vast heavens, her perfect toes and fingertips touching the earth as she arched over it in cosmic beauty, the tear from her eye creating the Nile, the stars glowing with emerald light set into her very body, the single word beauty marked as glyph upon her sacred horns. The earth nestles between her thighs as daily she gives birth to the sun, each evening accepting him back into her body, just as each mortal returns unto her when the span of life is over, her body image painted on the ceilings of each tomb, her holy image painted inside the inner lid of the wooden casket in which the dead repose, as she leans forth from her celestial sycamore to quench the thirst of afterlife. Joyous was the festival of lamps, when all Sais glowed with flames in honor of her mysteries, each small dish of oil and salt with woven wick afloat, burning brightly through the night, in memory of the great fire upon the waters, in memory of the fiery one, the great magician Neith. Though if her anger was provoked, she might cause the sky to crash upon the ground, still she was the mother of all, broad-winged goddess who protects from evil, who defends the good with bow and arrow, as she once defended those ancient priestesses who took her name. Nuit Hotep, Mariette Nuit, her Nuit, priestess queens who ruled when Egypt was young, when only women served at Nuit's altars, each knowing throughout her life that she would one day glisten as a star upon the measureless body of the Mother of Heaven. Okay, guys, this is the third product that I got from Premium Jane, and it is actually a CBD capsule. Comes in a nice bottle, and it's a soft gel, so yeah, it is easy to take, and it's in a nice little, container, a little bit bigger than my average antihistamine bottle. And there are 40 milligrams for each capsule. So they're not very large, which is also kind of nice. And each capsule is guaranteed to have that amount in it. So you can see it's, a small size capsule. And it is an oil capsule, so you definitely want to drink some water after you take it in case you get burp up afterwards, which I only had once. So I've been taking this at night before going to bed. And the first time I took it, I definitely noticed a shift in my energy field. It was like I had a lot of energy moving around through my spine and so forth. My kundalini was going nuts, and apparently I can't actually close the bottle at the moment without fussing. And it definitely has made me feel quite relaxed. It's been helping with the spasms that I have at night. Last night I didn't take it to see what would happen, and I woke up partially through the night with some spasms in my legs and stuff, and so it definitely had an effect on assisting with that, and I'm quite pleased with its performance. I like it quite a bit, and if I think I'll probably make this one definitely part of my routine. And again, the name of the company is Premium Jane. The information will be in the comment section at the beginning of on the video itself. And you get a 25% discount on all of their products. And the product discount code is my name, Siofra, Siofra. So, if you want to try it out, feel free. And they're going to send me a product a month to try out, they said, so I can let you know later other products of their line that I've tried and what kind of reaction or response or whatever I've gotten from it. So, I'm excited. It's kind of cool. All right, guys. Okay, so I wanted to share some of my experiences with the Northern Lights up in northern British Columbia. Uh, the Northern Lights in themselves are some of the most incredible things to witness. If you get an opportunity to see them in person, do so. Because it's very difficult to describe what they are like just through words, because it's not just the colors and the moving of the lights, it's also the energy and the sound for those of us who can hear them. Um, and it's just a fascinating kind of thing. So, um, one of the things that I noticed about Coyote and the Northern Lights is that there is a clear relationship between the two of them. When I was living outside of, I can't remember the name of the town. I think I was in Telqua, British Columbia, in Smithers. It was outside of Smithers. We were living on this farmhouse that had its own private lake. It was owned by a doctor. He was in the Caribbean, I think, trying to get healing for an illness that medical doctors didn't have any kind of actual treatment plan for. And so we were allowed to rent this amazing structure. I mean, it had its own sauna and all this kind of stuff, and like I said, its own little private lake, which we went out on a little boat from time to time. And one night, uh, we were outside because we could feel and see the Northern Lights were starting to become active. And it was so fascinating. There were a fair number of coyotes that lived out in that part of the land. When we lived in the valley itself, there were more wolves than coyotes, but this was definitely coyote central, outside of town. And I would start to hear the coyotes starting to yip and so forth just before the lights would suddenly come on. And it became a clear correlation that every time the coyotes would start to get excited, it would be just before the lights became visible to us. And I looked and looked to see if I could find some kind of a story, if any of you know a story about a relationship between coyote and the Northern Lights, please let me know, because it would be wonderful to hear about it. I definitely looked for it, but didn't find anything. And so that was just such a fascinating thing. And I had continuing experiences with coyotes in that house, actually. I had one night, I started hearing them yipping in my dreams, and it finally woke me up, and I realized that it wasn't in my dreams, it was actually right outside. And so I got out of bed and I went to the window up on the second floor and looked down, and there was a whole collection of a dozen or more of coyotes underneath my window, and they were all looking at my window and singing. And then the sun just started coming up, and as the sun started coming up, they turned around and they left in pairs and groups of three in all these different directions. So they had come together for this one thing, to sing at my window. And I find it quite fascinating at this point that Ian has coyote, and his coyote has actually come and introduced itself to me on more than one occasion, and that I had all these interactions with coyote years before we ever met. Um, so, but with the Northern Lights, I was very attuned to them. It was like I could feel them in my bones, and I could tell when they were coming. Um, and I had a number of incredible experiences with them. One, which sort of relates in a sense to this in stories that I've been telling throughout this video. I was seeing David. We were at a lookout tower. He was working for the Forest Service at the time. So I went to his lookout tower for the weekend. We weren't together at that point, but we were just, together for the night, kind of not together, but together, as it were. And the sun was just setting, and of course, lookout towers have got a great view of an area because they have to be up high and above everything, so you have an uninterrupted view of the land around you. And there was a river that went by the cab or by the area that we could see that was down below, and the sun started to set, and the moon started to rise, so it was full moon time, because that's the only time that they are that close time-wise to each other, of setting and rising. And the northern lights came out while it was still light, which is an unusual thing. You don't usually see them that well when the light is out, but the light was starting to fade just enough that we could actually see them. And for some reason, the light seemed to be attracted to watercourses. So often, if there's a river, the lights will kind of follow the curve of the river. I don't know if it's the ions from the water that attract the, and the other ions that are excited and whatnot in the air, or what, but it's pretty common to see that. And so as we were standing there looking out, we both saw two faces, one on either side, one on the side of the setting sun and one on the side of the rising moon. And they were like, just sort of perfect profile. And I know we have a tendency to see faces even if there aren't any, but these were so clear, it was difficult to imagine they weren't actually faces. And then they drifted across the sky at each other. And then as they moved into one another, they changed form and shape, and they became a single female form with a long flowing dress, robe, whatever, and then continued going that way towards the setting sun. And it was kind of like a stunned silence for a minute, looking at this happening in front of us, and we looked at each other and, did you see what I saw? And I said, you mean the two profiles that merged into the large woman that was walking that way? Yeah. And so that was like such a gift to witness that kind of thing, regardless of the science that might be behind it, to see those images and imagine what it was like in the ancient past when people lived in those places where the northern lights or the southern lights, depending on what part of the world you're in, come out and can create these actual visual images of gods and goddesses and things in the sky. It's just was amazing. And then there was another Northern Lights display that was very impactful to me, that generally speaking, when you're watching the lights, they do a lot of moving around. They don't stay static. That's one of the things about them that becomes pretty apparent, is that they're constantly in motion and moving around, and depending on what molecules they're exciting depends on the color of the lights. And I was watching the Northern Lights, of course, because who could not whenever they came out, which was a lot when I lived up there. We must have been in a high sunspot activity time. But so I saw this one area of the sky that seemed to be static. It was like there were two images. One would be on, and then it would go off, and then another would come on. And they were like switching places back and forth like this, just one after the other. And it made me notice it because they weren't like doing the usual mold merge kind of blobbing out and shifting around kind of thing. They were just like this. So I started looking at them, and then I realized that the one shape that I was seeing was the fire coming out of a dragon's mouth, and the other shape was the dragon. So the body would appear and the fire would disappear. The body would disappear and the fire would appear, and it would go back and forth like this. And it went on like this for 20 minutes at least. Couldn't believe it. So it's a difficult to describe an incredible experience to see that stuff. And from what I understand, not everyone hears the Northern Lights. I am one of them that does hear it. It sort of sounds like static rubbing. That's how my body or my mind interprets the sound that I'm hearing. And for a long time, scientists thought that people who said they heard the Northern Lights were mistaken. The polite way of saying it, they were mistaken. And but now they know that there is an actual sound, and some people can hear it. We're not actually lying about that. It's kind of interesting how many things that people have experienced, sometimes over thousands of years, that they've described, and scientists for a long time were like dismissive of those direct observations because they were subjective and they hadn't been scientifically proven with objective equipment and that kind of thing. So it was kind of fun when they discovered we were not lying. But there certainly were plenty of other times. It's like I could feel them coming, and I would know that they were on the way. I could like tell which direction they were going to come from, and I would start pointing to that part of the sky and say, "Here they come," and then all of a sudden, here would come this streaming, moving lights of stuff. So I guess it's just sort of an interesting thing. I'm glad I experienced it. Um, the beauty and wonders of nature are always sort of an astonishing thing to me when you get to experience them. So, okay. So this has been Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan. Blessed be.